Welcome to the channel. Thank you to everybody for tuning in. Now today's watch that we're looking at is a blast from the past. Yes, that's right, even AliExpress watches have some history. I want to see if some of the long-term subscribers can remember this brand. The brand's called Phorcydes, and this is going back about 4 years when they released the first model, the PH-1, and I rated it quite highly back then. And then they did also release something called a PH-2, which is quite similar to the one I've got in hand, but then they just disappeared. Not heard from at all with zero follow-up. Now they are back in action again with a renewed PH-2, the LIP homage. Now this has been out a while and it seems to have racked up some pretty solid reviews already. It's got the expected specifications featuring a Seiko NH35 movement which is ghosted with no date disc. Comes in a total of 4 different looms. Yeah, you heard that right. There are no dial colors, just types of lume as variants. And this makes this watch one of the coolest representations of a vintage icon that I've seen in quite a while. And I put this up there with the likes of the 54 watch or the Seaston 62 Mass homage, the likes of the Seaston Doxa homages, those Redune Willards, and so on. So I didn't expect much when this actually arrived through the post, and something about it straight away appeals to that particular watch enthusiast. It's definitely got the retro skin diver watch aesthetic, that streamlined and proportionate case size, the box sapphire crystal, and that distinguishable slim line bezel, which just shows the type of watch this basically is. Purely for top tier, nothing but very cool vibes with plenty of borrowed flair and character. Now they're obviously not the first to do this type of design. Many others have, from Tondorio to Watch Dives to Sugues. So many brands have done a homage to the OG Fathoms, but none, not even one, I think looks as good as this. It's beautifully understated, and they definitely have reimagined that iconic design with some contemporary dial features, which I'm going to show you in just a little while. So I'm 90% sure the PH2 that actually came out before this disappeared had some differences on the dial, and the layout wasn't like what we see with this model. And it's due to those features on this dial which transformed this watch and put it at a very bespoke end of the Chinese retro inspiration watches. The dial features these solid blocks of lume for pretty much everything, except that central minute track which is printed. Everything around it, those Arabics and recognizable arrow markers. Phorcydes calls it hyperglow, which is some X1 casted lume. Now this makes that flat black dial pop and enhances that overall design. Now the Arabics are very thin, which means there needs to be a high precision, which you can see that off the lume blocks. The classic syringe hands are also stacked with this 3D lume, and this is unseen. The overall effect you get on the dial is simply brilliant. Now, there's also one feature now, and again it's something which I haven't seen, but now that I have, I think it's absolutely badass. Now for this, let's take a look at the lume. Solid, bright, and a lumed bezel, but forget all that. What's that in that center? That's the Phorcydes logo, cut out in some real badass way, something which, again, we haven't seen this technique, or I haven't at least, with lume just under the logo, under that dial, and the watch glows like, the chest of Iron Man. Those blocks are big and bright, very solid, and it is a joy to look at with excellent lume match across the entire watch. But happy feelings aside, we know the watch can't just look good, function is just as important. Now the bezel rotation, it does have room for improvement. On the rotation, it's a little light, but it's also offset by an extremely thin, fine-tooth edge. It's built quite well, right? Solid, it doesn't feel flimsy, and actually does have perfect alignment. Now the crown, I wouldn't say it's 100% user-friendly. These cases are known for very small crowns, and it does take a bit of care to screw the crown back down, but it's not due to the threading, it's due to that spring-loaded sort of stem mechanism that you get on the inside of the crowns. So I think with a bit of trial and error, a bit of patience, you do end up catching 1-2 of the threads, and then you can screw the crown in completely. Thankfully, you only have to open and close the crown now and then, and that's if you actually decide you want to take the watch off, which I didn't. Now the case is also something which appeals to that 70s, 80s skin diver look. You can also see that 6.2 mass case shape here in this shorter barreled lugs design. Now the case shape is quite interesting. It's almost 2 sections, the center cylindrical or almost UFO shape, main body of the watch, and then those thin lugs across the center, slim, crisply defined, thanks to the softer than usual tool-like brushing across the whole watch in varying grains, so circular over the top of the lugs and horizontal along the case. Now the case back is pretty badass too. They're not being shy here, perhaps some controversial use of 3 letters, but it seems like they're proudly displaying it more as a nod to the OG, so a fair homage in that sense. The case is such that this watch is going to be a strap beast. I can just imagine it's going to go suit pretty much every strap, every color, every type, every material, whatever you can throw at it. Now, I've heard a couple of moans about the one they've supplied, and I think it actually fits the bill. It's in line with the simplistic, underrated nature of the watch. The strap is also slightly curved towards the end and it's extremely supple, and it also has a machined buckle which adds to the overall coolness of this watch, fully brushed with some nice detailing there and the logo. Yeah, so I think the strap, as I said, definitely suits that minimalistic aesthetic. The fit, as you guys can imagine, vintage throughout, but a crucially compact lug-to-lug of 48mm as opposed to some of the 50mm and above on most homages. 39mm diameter, which is perfect proportions, and after spending just 5-10 minutes with this, as I do with all the watches, as I looked them over and test them out, I took my watch off that I was wearing at the time and slapped this straight on wrist, and it hasn't left the wrist. Now, and I actually love when this happens. When I have next to zero expectations from a watch, I didn't know what to expect before this watch arrived, and it turns out that the watch really grows on me and I end up really liking it. Now, this happens now and then. You can definitely see the passion that comes out when I look at really, really good watches, or watches which, I gel with. Of course, I get the odd comment that this is a nice advertisement, sales video, blah, blah, blah. But I know you guys know exactly what I'm on about and you guys know the score. Now, I've not mentioned the price on purpose. It's priced perfectly, I'd say, at £140. Very reasonable. Of course, if it's in the sale time, the coupons will further reduce that price. Now, I'd happily pay the £140 any day of the week for something like this. And this is definitely going to be a keeper for me. And even, to the point, even the ghost position hasn't bothered me. So that's it for today. Drop your thoughts below as always. Thank you all for watching and I'll see you on the next video.